Welcome to Wine Sisters of the Vine. I'm Carrie from Oregon.
And I'm Regina from Atlanta. We are Wine Sisters of the Vine. How are you doing, Carrie?
I'm doing great, Regina. Happy to see you as usual, all the way here from our Willamette Valley, beautiful Willamette Valley and the sunshine. And
it looks beautiful behind you.
Thank you so much. So this is episode 12 for us, and we've come a long way in our filming, and we're back here again in the Willamette Valley to film some of these real wine pioneers in the industry, aren't we? And that's going to be fun.
Yes, I'm very excited about our guest tonight.
Yeah, me too. I would like to introduce Jim Bernal, the founder of Willamette Valley Vineyards. Say hey, Jim. And then Mary Jolie, the national sales manager from the East Coast. Did I get that right, Mary? Or do you want to throw in is that a good detail?
Close enough. Good enough.
Okay, super. So today we are going to be talking about really the evolution of Willamette Valley Vineyards and how Jim Bernal took essentially I don't know how many vineyards was it in the beginning, Jim? Would you say one vineyard in the beginning?
15 acres, actually.
An acre, even better. I love that.
Wow.
Acres.
So you've taken an acre and turned it into this showcase, publicly traded winery, which in itself is very interesting that we're going to completely touch on. And also now you're expanding to a second showcase as well here in the Dundee Hills. It's going to be a sparkling facility. So we've got a lot to touch on today. And I just think that the tremendous growth that you've had in the wine industry, tell us that story about how that started. What was that like in that acre? Because I know planting our vineyard when I was a little girl, watering those little Pinot Noir plants, it's a lot different than it is now. So take it away.
Carrie, Regina, we got started the same way Carrie did, really, and really at the same time, or close to the same time.
Yes.
So it really began with a very small acreage that I was able to obtain. And I didn't have the money to even afford drip irrigation. And I got help from some of my fellow winemakers who had founded the industry. Susan Sokolblosser came down and helped me lay out the vine rows. And Dan Duché of Freedom Hill Vineyard came over and helped me plant the first vines using a Christmas tree planter we put on the 3-point at the back of the tractor, because that's all we had and all we knew. Mm-hmm. And of course we would gather, at Nick's and share ideas in McMinnville. And Carrie, of course, knows a lot about that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really, so the beginnings of Oregon wine were very modest. And when she says she watered her vines by hand, so did we. I mean, I couldn't afford drip irrigation, so I bought, something like 17 lengths of 75-foot garden hose that was on sale at Fred Meyer. And that was my very beginning.
And wow. You have what are your thoughts then in terms of growth, and what do you see as some of the things that are the same in the industry today and some of the things that are different? I know the collaboration that you mentioned, that's obviously that's happening today still, which we're proud of.
Yes. With
the fires and helping each other. And
yes. It's really, we're kind of at the end of the Oregon Trail as Oregonians, and you still see that ethic in our behavior today, where the old-fashioned barn raisings where the community would come together and help raise each other's barns. It's still the same kind of ethic. And it really does set Oregon winemakers a bit apart, because I've traveled around the world, and we really do look that way and are regarded that way. Mm-hmm. One of the wines you'll be tasting tonight, actually all of these wines you're tasting tonight, tell a story about how Oregon has become to be known as one of the greatest wine growing regions in the world. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't by accident, and it wasn't just our weather. And so Carrie does really refer to that. This collaboration has led to breakthroughs in viticulture and enology that have set Oregon apart.
And so with that, let's talk about the tasting 2017 Bernal Block Chardonnay.
Now, Mary, you want to go ahead? This is Mary Jolie. She and I have been working together for many years, and she's a professional her entire life in wine.
Fabulous.
And so she's been with me a long time. I really appreciate the help and support she's given us.
That's nice, Mary. Sounds like you have a long history, and that's really special.
Well, I think about 20 years now I've been in the wine industry, and I've always really embraced that spirit of collaboration. I actually went to school, middle school and high school with Scott Henry Jr. down in Umpqua. So maybe had I known then what I know now.
Right.
But yeah, I love Jim's story about how this Chardonnay came to be. How he and he tells the story better than I ever could. Of course, he lived it, but he actually, that was part of his trade mission to Beaune, France. Jim, go ahead. I'll back you up.
One of the things
okay, really just enjoy the Chardonnay.
I know.
When the industry started, it was started by Californians that brought their cuttings with them from California to Oregon and planted them. And Richard Sommer came to, not far from where Mary grew up,
right?
Came to the Umpqua, and he brought his cuttings from California, planted the first vinifera Pinot Noir vines in Oregon. And the way I got involved was he had to figure out how to get a winery license. Of course, Prohibition had wiped out the knowledge in state government of even how to issue a winery license. So he had to hire an attorney to help him make his way through the process of getting an Oregon winery license. And he drove his pickup into the town of Roseburg, and he hired my dad. And my dad brought home, I was very young, I was 10 years old, my brother was 12. My dad brought home Richard Sommer's wines and shared them with us at the dinner table. And I remember my dad holding up one of Richard's bottles, and he said, "Someday grapevines will cover Oregon." Now, my dad was just an enthusiast about a lot of things. And he was an enthusiast about Oregon. He believed in the unique attributes of Oregon. And so this wine, this Chardonnay, represents a major development in our history, because Oregon winemakers discovered we had a problem. We couldn't get the Chardonnay ripe in cool vintage years. And so we thought, well, maybe we could ask the Burgundians if they wouldn't mind giving us some of the native material from their Grand Cru vineyards. And so David Adelsheim, another fellow winemaker, and I talked our governor into leading a trade mission to Burgundy to enlist the help of the French. And you remember that the French had a very dim view of Americans in the wine industry, and for good reason.
They laughed at us.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, the Americans in California had misused their very important designations, their geographic designations, which they control by law. Right? Ever since 1910, the French government has maintained a very strict control over the use of names like Burgundy or Bordeaux or Champagne or Chablis. And they were horrified to see, of course, Hardy Burgundy on a cheap bottle of red wine or Chablis on a cheap California wine. And so we had a lot of repairing to do in the relationship. But what the founding Oregon winemakers did here, when they came to Oregon, they said, look, let's start this industry in Oregon the right way. So they went to the Oregon Liquor Control Commission in 1977 and said, we want to respect European laws and French laws with respect to designations, both geographic designations and varietal designations. So that Oregon established the strictest laws governing wine labeling in the country. And so the French, when they saw us come and they knew about how we respected them, they welcomed us and helped us. And so they gave us this plant material. We had to get actually Oregon State University to accept this plant material as a federal recipient of plant material for quarantine purposes. And then we were able to put it in our vineyards. And so this Chardonnay that you're tasting is from that plant material that came, you know, in these crates labeled Dijon clone. That, you know, basically the professors at the University of Dijon had helped us, had identified that plant material and sent it to us. And so Oregon Chardonnay, especially grown in the cool climate of the Willamette Valley, greatly improved. We got you know, ripening 2 weeks earlier than the plant material we'd gotten from California.
Wow, incredible! That's incredible.
Well, and the fact is, we could actually, that is a beautiful, I love, well summarized part of that story. And to add another wonderful element is that we actually, after you got this clone for this wonderful Chardonnay, which by the way, I am enjoying and don't want to even share for dinner, but
it's so fantastic.
You were able to grow them. The second step is, and you know, my parents were the same way. They actually put them in the ground and were able to shelter and take care of these vines and nurture them, I guess is the right word, into this glass of wine right now that we're tasting. And you know, I'm going to put the label up so everybody can see this when they're watching the episode. So the 2017 Willamette Valley Vineyards Bernal block technically started, I would say, seems to me, what would you say, Jim? Technically started in the early 80s with those original Dijon clones.
Yes, they came in stages over time, we got different clones at different times, and the French actually, after a while, woke up and thought, oh my gosh, we probably need to license these clones. And so we actually have a clone 943. It's a Pinot Noir clone that we actually had to sign an agreement with the French government, a licensing agreement. And
Wow.
we can't let anybody go out into the vineyard to even take cuttings.
Oh, interesting.
So you can see that in the early stages of when the industry developed, there was so much goodwill between Burgundian winemakers and the Burgundian winemakers. And as you know, of course, that led to Robert Drouhin coming to Oregon and having his daughter make wine at Domaine Drouhin of Oregon.
Well, we thought he was a realtor. We thought he was not telling the truth. That he was
really.
We laughed at him because, I mean, didn't laugh at him. We thought he was very charming, but we thought, wow, he's a really charming realtor. He just wants to buy some grape land, and that's not really Robert Drouhin. I mean, nobody in our little sector right there in our little small segment of the hills thought that. Of course, then when he actually went and bought it, and we embraced him, and he's just an amazing human being. But it's those synchronicities in the industry that I think you made a very good point that have put us from where we started on the map, because we connected with France and with Atlanta and connected with places all over the world. So that's the exciting part. And I think it's indicative of that network, that early network that you were part of setting up, Jim, which is one of the reasons we're talking to Regina in Atlanta right now. And I'm sure Mary has traveled all over the United States with that Dijon clone Pinot, Dijon clone Chardonnay, and it's come a long way since.
It really is nice.
And I think that recently I went to, in February, I think it was the second annual Chardonnay celebration at the Allison Inn in Newburgh. And there were over 60 Oregon producers there showcasing their Chardonnays. It was an incredible event. I mean, especially for me, I am a Chardonnay lover. And to get to really see where Jim started and Michael Alsheim started, and to see his son David there, And at the Chardonnay celebration, and with 60 producers, it was a really incredible to see how far we've come in Oregon with this one varietal alone.
Yes, definitely. And David Lett's son, Jason Lett, carrying on the family torch with that Chardonnay as well. Very involved with that at the Allison and championing that. So
he was the
legacy.
master of ceremonies, I think. He was wonderful.
Yes. Still in the same building that my dad actually sold to him. It was a turkey processing plant. And so he's actually still occupying that building in our old, warehouse facility that we had 40 plus years later. So yeah, that's how we roll around here. We know how to keep in touch with each other, like we're doing today.
Yes, this is a fascinating story. I'm learning so much about how Oregon got started in this whole space. I love it. This is a great stories.
You want to talk to Jim about their new facility, a sparkling wine facility that they're having there. World class, say it 3 times fast, Methodos sparkling wine.
So Method Champenois, see, is going to be taking care. Yes, I love that. So can you tell me about this underground aging cellar and how this farm is biodynamically done?
Well, it really first starts with what a lot of people don't fully appreciate. And that is that the Willamette Valley, particularly the North Willamette Valley in the Dundee area, has a unique set of growing conditions for cool climate varieties like Pinot Meunier, Chardonnay, and Pinot Noir that are the base varieties for Method Champenois sparkling wine. And here's the key. Our climate is such that we develop aromas and flavors at lower Brix levels. And when you pick grapes for making this wine, you're picking it at 18 and a half Brix rather than waiting until you're at 24 or 25, 24 and a half, right, for a still wine like Pinot Noir. And that's really the fundamental key, is that, and this is a discovery that, of course, Argyle, Brian Crozier and others, when they first started Argyle,
Rollin,
really started to fully appreciate. And what we're really doing is adding a new twist to it. Now, Andrew Davis, who was a winemaker there at Argyle for about 8 years,
right,
and started his own company called Radiant
Sparkling.
And it was, yes, and it was really only, we're lucky, right? And it gets back to this whole concept of really what's in the Oregon DNA. And collaboration and
mobile bottling line, right? The mobile bottling line is fantastic. Andrew's.
Yes, so what he did was, if Andrew Davis was the one who is really helping us make this happen. And we would not be able to do that without his expertise. And what's unique and sets this apart is it will be the first facility dedicated to making Method Champenois.
Sorry, I started that.
But it's also going to be biodynamic. So we're going to farm the vineyard biodynamically. We are now. And we're also going to grow the things that you can cook and taste with those sparkling wines in this facility biodynamically. And so it'll be one of the unique places in all of the world where someone can come and learn about biodynamic farming practices, the benefits of them to all living creatures, but also to the flavors and aromas of wine. And so that's what's so exciting about being there. And of course, I can't wait, Regina, to show you this. Mary and I will certainly, and Carrie will drag you along to show you this. It's under construction. My wife is building it right now.
Wow.
We expect it'll be done mid 2022, we think.
Okay.
And we're there, right, Regina?
Yes, sounds perfect. I cannot wait.
Oh
and the vineyard's been there for about 17 years.
Okay. So I ask you to just expand on the whole biodynamic. I get that question a lot in my shop, and I love explaining that, but I would love for you to share with our listeners and watchers just a little bit about biodynamic farming and what does that really mean. I think people get organic and biodynamic confused, and sometimes they don't know the difference, but there is a distinct difference there.
Oh, absolutely. And it really, it can be quite complex, but the foundation of biodynamic farming comes from essentially an architect, an Austrian architect, Rudolf Steiner, an architect and also a philosopher. And during the time the Industrial Revolution was developing, people were noticing that there was a change in the spirit of people. And Rudolf Steiner felt, well, it was this industrialization of farming that was at the root of the problem. So Rudolf Steiner advocated for bringing life and the spirit of life back into the foods. And that's really fundamentally what he taught. Now, the things that we do, of course, is we pay attention to the influences of gravitational effects, for example. And we know we're all influenced by the sun and the moon and its gravitational influences on even the growing season. And for people who learned about the Hawaiians, who have been farming for what, at least 900 years or more biodynamically, only people recently discovered that. These principles of developing these treatments that are developed, in the vineyard, these, for example, like the teas that we make and we spray onto the vines that are grown and developed in the vineyard. And the very holistic manner in which we farm, where the animals will trod the vineyard and create some permeability in the soil, as an example. A holistic approach that some people have called voodoo farming, because there is you take a leap of faith. It's not just all science. But all of us who love science know that there's really a lot of legitimacy in how biodynamic farming is used and how it's approached. But it really is essentially a holistic way of looking at the farm in the vineyard as a part of a holistic approach to growing things.
Yes, I agree. So thank you for giving us a little bit more information on biodynamic farming.
I think that's that was great clarity too. And that's a question we get a lot, isn't it, Regina?
I get it literally every day, because people come in and they want, and I have biodynamic wines in my shop. And so they're like, well, what's biodynamic? And, I do my best to try to explain to them that, that there is, the moon and the stars, and how that is in alignment, and when things happen in this whole process. And so they tend to understand that. So I just thought it would be great for our listeners to hear that coming from Jim.
One of the ways that I try and give people examples about different types of farming is when they think about going to a Saturday market where someone has grown, things on a very small scale, naturally, organically, and how even tomatoes, or strawberries taste so much better, right? Even though they may not be as pretty, right? They may not be flawless like some of these, commercially grown and chemically driven farming practices, but they know the difference in taste, and so that helps them. That once you can show people that when you stop using chemicals and these industrial approaches to farming, that they benefit because they get something that tastes better. That they'll understand. Now, it's more expensive actually to do these things. Remember, industrialized farming were used because it was cheaper. They developed during the war, right? Because they didn't have the labor, so they had to come up with labor-saving devices. They were able to split, fracture the carbon atom, and it came from oil to make, fertilizers, and then it was off to the races. And unfortunately, now only 50 years later, Americans and people who farm this way now realize, oh my God, we're poisoning the land. There's a wonderful program of farming activities going on in India, where the East Indians are restoring the health of the soil, but also their own health in doing so by using these biodynamic practices.
Yes.
I would say this is one of the, I mean, there's so many valuable things I have learned already about Willamette Valley Vineyards. It's just this background of really being a progressive supporter of taking care of the land. And another thing that I discovered is Willamette Valley Vineyards donated $1 from each bottle sold in June to Self Enhancement Inc. You were able to donate more than $24,000 to Self Enhancement Inc. And maybe we could touch a little bit and discuss founding member John Scott and your support of diversity from the beginning, and also these community service projects. Jim?
You touched on it. When we started, I'm just like you, right? A lot of passion and enthusiasm for Oregon wine, but I didn't have the resources to build a world-class winery.
Right.
My idea was, if I could get lots of other wine enthusiasts to join me from all walks of life, collectively, by working together, we could build a world-class winery. So I went to the corporations division in Oregon, and I proposed this idea and said, I need to figure out how I can allow wine enthusiasts to buy small equity interests in this project. And they said, well, Jim, what a great idea. Wine enthusiasts will own the winery. Good heavens, they'll drink their own wine and talk about their own wine. They thought, but here's the problem, Jim. They said it's illegal. You can have only 10 unqualified investors a year and no more than 35 total. So really the system, frankly, was rigged. Frankly, not intentionally, but it was rigged against people of modest means or medium means in doing these kind of things. And so what I did was, I spent 3 years studying how to do the only legal way, which was to do a public offering. It was the only legal way that I could have hundreds and hundreds of wine enthusiasts join me. And so we were the very first company in the United States to do a self-underwritten public stock offering, which is now called commonly crowdfunding. So we're the very first company in the United States. When we did that, we started creating a fabric of laws advocating to allow entrepreneurs to do this. And that's why you're seeing people from all walks of life, right? From all backgrounds, from all ethnicities as well, being able to form their own companies this way. Now, John Scott was a retired HR director of the Oregon Department of Revenue. And John Scott was one of my fellow founders.
Okay.
And he loves wine, but in fact, he really loves wine. He studies it carefully. And so he has been helping me all these years build Willamette Valley Vineyards, and is responsible actually for a part of our company now where he does outreach in various stores with various chain buyers. So that's his role now. But he started just as an owner and frankly, just as a volunteer. Now our company is, because of, we have all these owners, we now have 18,000 wine enthusiasts as owners. So we're the largest wine enthusiast organization in the United States.
That's incredible.
And they own stock in our company. And so from all walks of life, I get these people helping build the company. And so if you look at our winemaking staff, Joe Ibrahim, for example, and his background from the Middle East, his family's background, or Gabby Prefontaine and her background as a French Canadian. They're remarkable winemakers. Or Manuel Campos, who is, he's my HR director, and as you can imagine, really helps us with a very large segment of our employment, because we do all the farming ourselves. So that's one of the largest segments of our employment. We have quite a few people out in the vineyard, and we need someone who's really, really good at Spanish, of course, but also is respected and understood. And Efren Loaiza, for example, who first came to the United States across the border illegally. He was caught and deported back when he was 16 years old. He came with his father, to try and make a living. And then he went back, he studied everything he needed to study, became a US citizen, and he has been working at Willamette Valley Vineyards his entire professional life. He leads a crew that manages over 500 acres of vinifera vines.
Wow.
Fabulous.
And so he's a remarkable story.
Regina, you asked about Bill Fuller. he actually came to us with he worked with Bill Fuller back at Tualatin Estate. So he's actually been an employee of Willamette Valley Vineyards longer than Jim has.
That's
Yes,
incredible.
our business, and that's how I got, that vineyard was Bill Fuller, who was the first practicing winemaker to come to Oregon from Louis Martini's winery in Napa. He wanted to retire, so we merged our business together, and I got the employees of Tualatin as well.
He was at the same time as they all were neck and neck, David Lett, Dickie Rath, and Bill Fuller, and Charles Corey, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, there was big competition when they all came to see how fast they could all make wine, but you're right. I mean, Fuller was the only one who actually had been a winemaker. So,
Wow,
yeah.
that's incredible.
But back then, everybody's hats, you're also a grower. And to this day, you're still a grower, Jim, too, which is really quite amazing to wear both hats. That's
Right.
the complexity of doing that, as you know, Regina, is.
Yeah, you just don't find that everywhere.
No.
I mean, like, it's very rare, in my opinion, to have the grower, and yeah,
And make
absolutely.
on the same property, and now it's not farmed out to anybody else to farm it out. So he's got a real personal stake in it too, and all these 18,000 other member wine enthusiasts.
One of the things that you could think about coming to is a celebration, because we are going to honor Efren Loaiza and his family members who make up a good part of our vineyard crew. We're going to honor them in a special ceremony at a new vineyard that is being planted. We just took our first harvest this year, and we're naming it after the Loaiza family.
Oh, beautiful.
So the vineyard
That's wonderful.
It will be called Loaiza Vineyard. And it's just east of Gaston. It's a remarkable little, it's about a 50 acre vineyard.
That's right down the road here. That's nice. That's beautiful.
That's very nice.
Yeah. That sounds like another
Wonderful family.
come to.
Well deserving.
Yeah, what a contribution, you know, people like that have made to the industry. And I know from being a child of the vineyard what that takes to be in a vineyard and to nurture those grapevines. That's an incredible feat, you know. It's an incredible thing. So your biggest challenge during the doing business during the pandemic, Jim, what would you, and Mary, I know we discussed this a little bit, traveling maybe, not being able to travel to visit all of those wonderful prized vendors and, you know, relationships you value.
You know, the biggest challenge that Mary and I had, Carrie and Regina, was the safety of our employees and our customers. You know, we were getting conflicting information from our government. You know, it was really hard to sort out what was really true and what wasn't. In fact, that's still true today. Very difficult to know exactly what we should do to make sure we look after people properly.
For everybody.
Yeah, and so we took a number of steps, right? We figured out, we installed this NASA technology in our HVAC systems using UVC light. We coated the interior spaces with a material that kills viruses on contact. We separated the employees in their spaces. We had them work from their homes. And of course, we went through a 66-day close, right? We had 5 tasting rooms were closed for 66 days. And so this was challenging. And then we had to make sure we could keep everybody fed. So then we had to figure out, okay, who was getting impacted? Where else could they be productive, even working from home, right? Mm-hmm. And that was difficult to figure out how to do, but we did it. And then was to figure out how to help our community. And that's where you saw the self-enhancement support for that organization, which is a remarkable organization in Portland, dealing with the African-American community and helping young people with a mentorship and a leg up. So there was, I think safety was our biggest challenge. Then, of course, the second was our colleagues in the industry. The restaurant owners, how could we figure out how to support them? And then how could we figure out how to support our smaller colleagues in the industry? And then, of course, then we got the fires, right? So
Yes.
this 2020 is, oh my gosh, it's like right out of the Old Testament. You think about what we have been through as a people. It's been a challenging year.
It has been for all involved, right?
But we kept going, didn't we, Regina? We kept filming.
We did. We did.
Talk about that. That was very well put. We kept going through, family members being affected with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yes.
easy stuff. And the wildfire, I had my car packed for evacuation. Our
right.
cabin all down. I mean, we had, so that wildfire really got my priorities straight. If they weren't already straight from quarantining for 4 months, they are now.
I can't wait, Carrie and Regina. I can't wait until you get these 2020 wines from the Willamette Valley and you taste them on your show. Because what you're going to be able to show your viewers is that there was really more fear than there was fact.
Yes.
There were certainly vineyards affected by smoke, and I'm not saying that there wasn't those cases. There were. But by and large, the fruit's beautiful. And the fermentations are beautiful.
Yes.
And I know that you as professionals in wine know what happens when Mother Nature reigns during bloom and takes your harvest down. Mother Nature took our yields down by between 38 and 42%. And you know what that means. That means you get, really small crops of incredible flavor. Right?
Intense.
Yeah.
You're going to see
complexity. That's perfectly put, because the fruit that I have seen, and I've even tasted some of the pressed juice just yesterday, it really is this intensity because of those small clusters and very low yield. It's all power packed into these small clusters, and it's just pressing this juice, which is just amazing. So I think Mother Nature also did us a favor in that department too, because despite all of the fears, I agree, there's going to be some beautiful 2020 wines. Who knew? So we just go forward, and we're a resilient bunch here in Oregon, and we're going to keep walking.
And so that is going to be an episode for us, Carrie, to taste these wines so that people understand what a phenomenal crop this has been, even during a pandemic and fires.
Right. Well, you and I filmed together, and I was out in this exact same spot, and behind me, you couldn't even see those trees.
With smoke everywhere.
She was talking to me, and she said, "Carrie, you can't sit out there anymore." She made me go sit in the living room because I realized maybe I shouldn't be sitting outside. It
looks scary back behind you.
Yeah. So, how about I think it's time to taste some of that beautiful 2007.
I can't wait. I couldn't wait. I'm ready right now.
Got it in Atlanta there.
Tualatin Estate, in my mind, is one of our most spectacular, beautiful, scenic, bucolic landscapes of a vineyard that we have. It's right in the foothills of the coastal mountain range in the very furthest northwest corner of the Willamette Valley. So I think Bill Fuller was one of the bravest, when a lot of the original pioneers coming up from California were thinking it's going to be too cool. It's going to be too cool. He actually was pretty brave to go to a very high elevation spot as far north as he could go. And he found a 200-acre strawberry farm. And he started planting that, back in 73, I think?
73, wow. Yeah.
And Efren Loaiza still lives there on site, and anytime I get a chance to go up there, I take it, even if I'm just the driver. It's just beautiful.
One of the northernmost located vineyards in the Willamette. It's just as Mary described. It's in the kind of nestled into the foothills of the Coast Range, and so sometimes the migrating elk will come down. And you could see the top of their heads over the vine rows.
I love it.
You don't allow hunting, so the elk come and seek refuge on the property, right?
That's incredible.
Hold that. I'll be right back. Hold that thought, Regina. I'll be right back.
Okay.
This vineyard is like Bill Fuller describes it as a cul-de-sac. The mountains have created a shape around it that
Mm-hmm.
it's like Sausalito's, weather envelope. You go to San Francisco and it's pretty chilly
Yes.
sometimes. You drive across the Golden Gate and you're in Sausalito and it's beautifully warm and
Right.
sunny. Well, the same is true of this vineyard, and that's why they grew strawberries there, and that's what
Oh.
Bill Fuller knew. The other thing that's unique about this vineyard is it has a soil that's very unusual. There are these they look like little round musket balls.
Mm-hmm.
They're like little pitted rounded musket balls, and there's like feet of them in the soil.
Mm-hmm.
And they're called piezolites, and they're formed in the soil. And we think it actually leads to kind of this rose petal nose that you can find often in the 12th and Estate Pinot Noir.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It is beautiful.
I have a little historic bottle of wine here.
Oh my gosh.
And
Oh my gosh.
I have 3 of them, and this is going to be our gift from my family wine cellar. My dad never got rid of anything. And I'm going to gift it to you all for the estate in your library collection. Here's the second one.
Oh, Gewürz.
Oh gosh. Well, now that's actually one of Bill's favorites.
And here's the third.
And you have a Chardonnay, did you show me? Was that the first one you showed us?
I have
year is that? What vintage year is that?
86.
1986. Holy
Wow.
Yeah,
86 was a good year for me.
He was such a good winemaker. There's hardly, it is still, look, there's hardly any sediment. He's amazing winemaker.
He is. In fact, he was the first Oregon winemaker to get an Oregon wine listed in the top 100 of the Wine Enthusiast.
Yeah.
Wow.
But here's what surprises people. It wasn't for a Pinot Noir. It was for the Chardonnay.
Really?
Yes, that surprises people.
Yeah.
If the Tualatin Estate Vineyard was the first winemaker and the only winemaker ever to win Best of Show White and Best of Show Red in the same year at the London International Wine Competition.
That is fantastic.
Never been done before. He did it with the Pinot Noir and the Chardonnay.
Wow.
Incredible.
Well, this is coming your way. So hopefully we'll be all able to meet on the deck when the new winery is built, and we'll celebrate. So
Wonderful.
Cheers.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much.
Keeping the legacy going here. So your business expansion and, what you see for the future, both Jim and Mary, for the future of wine consumption in the U.S., how do you think the quarantine has affected doing business in the wine industry? And how do you think that's going to change how we do business in the future?
I'll answer for my little small corner of the world first.
Okay.
It really has changed the way I do business. I'm old school and I'm face to face and I'm a hugger. So this has really changed the way I do business. But I've really embraced Zoom. I've really gotten very knowledgeable on our chain business. And although I still support our restaurants and our wine reps, I'm constantly texting and talking with them and supporting them on an independent level. I think that the retail business is really booming right now because of the pandemic, because of quarantine. And I think that that's kind of the near future for what I'm doing, making sure people that our wines are available and people can find them readily to take home with them and enjoy while we ride all this out.
Yeah, Regina's busy so much in her retail store.
Yeah, we've been really, really busy. So, Mary, are these wines here in Georgia?
Yes, we have our 7 core wines in Georgia, our flagship Estate Pinot Noir, which is a compilation of fruit from all 3 of our vineyard sites. I believe you're going to taste that next.
Mm-hmm.
Also, our whole cluster Pinot Noir, our Pinot Gris. We have a Riesling and a whole cluster Rosé as well.
Who's the distributor here in Georgia?
General Wholesale.
Okay, well, I will reach out to them because we will have these wines in Corks and Convey.
You have just a few select single vineyard designate Pinot Noirs at a restaurant called The Grotto in Buckhead.
Yeah, no, Grotto.
And then also a single vineyard designate Chardonnay they serve at Peachtree Country Club.
Yep. Okay.
Which I've done a wine dinner there. So
there is a silver lining to this pandemic and how it's influenced consumers. The first thing people did during quarantine, of course, was they had time to learn to pull out, you know, the mom's recipes or grandma's recipes, and people did a lot of cooking. And they had time to do that, and they did a lot of cooking together as couples, which many hadn't really had an opportunity to do. And the only thing you could do, of course, in these lockdowns, the only thing that was allowed to do is to go to the grocery store, right?
Right.
And so that one of the silver linings here for Oregon winemakers is that people were drinking better because they were pairing foods with wines and had the time to learn about wines. So I think actually this pandemic has accelerated people's interest in kind of the finer parts of culinary pursuits. The second thing that happened was the only way they could get these high quality wines was either from shops that were open or directly from the winery. So you look at a lot of small wineries in Oregon, their only chance of reaching the customer is through their front door, developing a relationship, and then later being able to ship those wines to the states where it's legally permitted to ship them. And so I think and so you've seen now consumers getting a taste for these wines that they hadn't had before. And I think that actually will support the small scale wine shop owners who are dedicated to finding those jewels, right? And making sure that customers learn about them. So I actually believe that the Oregon wine industry will come out of this, even though it's been really rough on those small producers, especially. But I do think that long term, we're going to be kind of more interested in some of the simpler things in life, some of the finer things in life. And you'll see a lot more interest in education with wine.
Yeah, very well put. That's very eloquent. And I totally agree. You know, Oregon pioneers, my ancestors walked 4,000 miles on the Oregon Trail, and here I am 6 generations later. And we're a resilient bunch. And when things get tough, we cook and we drink good wine.
That's right.
Yeah.
Why not? So, and with that, we have this wonderful wine. I'm excited. This 2018 Estate Pinot Original Planting, 91 points in the Vinous rating. That just seems incredible.
Yeah, the nose is fantastic.
Right, I can see you just wanting to smell it.
I just want to jump in it.
It's one of my favorite wines to sell, definitely in my territory. Just because I think it is such an excellent representation of what we're doing in the mid to northern Willamette Valley, you know, with all of with so many different vineyard sites that we have. This is a compilation of fruit that comes from almost every single one of our vineyard sites here in the Willamette Valley. And I just think that it's a very classic style Pinot Noir that is very elegant, very bright, has great acidity to it, very well balanced.
Yeah.
And I think that for the price point to be all estate grown, it's a slam dunk. It's an easy sell.
Yeah, definitely. It is fantastic. I cannot wait to get on the horn tomorrow, see how quickly I can get it into my shop. Yeah.
Nina, call me if you need any help.
I will call you for sure. I will hold you to that, Mary.
2018s. The 2018s, we had, a bloom period that produced a low fruit set. We had weather that was a winemaker's year. It was so beautiful. We did not have these really, any high heat spikes. And we had this kind of very cool off into September. So the acidity was retained in the fruit, and the flavors developed slowly in the fruit. I would say that some winemakers believed it was one of their best vintages. And that's because they could time when they went out and picked and when they brought that fruit into the cellar. Now this estate is all grown on the estate properties we have. It's all, we manage those vineyards by hand, the canopy is by hand. The clusters are all picked by hand. And the wine is made in very small lots in about 1.5 ton size fermenters. So I think that if you were to find a wine that represented the Willamette Valley, it would be this one. Now, there's other great Oregon winemakers, right? There's remarkable Oregon winemakers. So be looking for that vintage here.
Oh, we're all stronger together, I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great information, when I have customers that come into the shop, that 2018, is like considered a great year for Oregon wine. So thank you for that.
And number 8, I think our last point is yours, Regina.
Yeah, so in this climate that we're in, the pandemic, we've had a lot of other world things going on. And so my question to you is, why is diversity and inclusiveness important to you in your business?
Well, first of all, how we were started, right? We're representative of the community.
Yep.
And we if you look at who buys our product, right? Who's enthusiastic about our product? They're from all walks of life. They're from all ethnicities. And we benefit greatly from their involvement. Now, the thing that is important is that we act affirmatively in recruiting for our positions and in promotion of our positions. And the reason why we do is that if all we did is what a number of businesses do, which is basically recruit and hire on experience. Well, yes, in the liquor business, the alcohol business, in the wine business, who's got the experience? Older white guys, right? And so if you
can say that, we can't.
It's okay.
If you use experience,
we have honest conversations here.
The problem is that we throw experience as a criteria out. And what we do instead is we look at people's strengths. And we do actually what's called strengths testing. So we learn about each individual, what their strengths are. And so we hire for attitude and we train for skill. So when you look at our company, over half of our leaders are women. The person I'm training to replace me is a woman. And really the reason for that is we act affirmatively to find the best talent, not based upon experience, but based upon what they're capable of. And then we have a performance-based system in our company that's very steeply graduated. And so the people who end up rising in our company are frankly the best performers. And big surprise, there's a lot of women, right? And so
I like that.
I like that too.
But there's a last part of it too, and that is we all have a duty, and that is to make sure that we are using our organizations to advance the interests of society in a positive way. And I believe that's a duty that we have. And so when you look at, for example, at our healthcare systems, now that we provide insurance for all of our employees, but health insurance, we're actually self-insured. But the other thing that we do is we support Salud. So Dick Erath and I put our money together to buy a mobile unit, medical van.
It's fabulous.
Wow.
They go out into the vineyards.
Yeah. This
medical team uses this van to go out in the vineyards and to call on farm workers who don't have that kind of access to healthcare. And when you think about it, think about the logic of this. If we can go out and see employees and their families, you know, in their workplace,
Mm-hmm.
they can bring their families to be checked as well. We can get ahead of problems, right? Instead of these problems ending up being horrific and in the emergency rooms of hospitals, we can actually get way ahead of them. And so the Salute program that we have in Oregon is frankly a much better way to deliver healthcare. And that's come from our industry. The Salute barrel auction, for example, which, Mary is very much involved in that program, which raises money to support these medical services. It's just one example.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Heartwarming. And so much of our, I mean, I don't know the percentage, Jim would probably know, but it's pretty significant of English second language employees that support our industry. We simply would not have the industry we have today without them, without the diversity of our employees. So, and I can personally say that Jim has given me so much opportunity. I've been with him now over 10 years, and this has been the best job.
Oh,
Well,
nice.
Right.
So take a look at Oregon. We have got great African-American winemakers in Oregon. We have great Latinx winemakers in Oregon. And we have more women winemakers in Oregon. So you think about how small our state is. Compare that to California and Washington, for example, and other parts of the country. And I think that's because we have a climate here, a societal climate here that is far more affirmative and dedicated to the long-term development of our societies. And we get much better outcomes. In fact, I'm kind of astonished, and I'm sure Carrie's a little astonished, that there's a bunch of Blazer basketball players. Of course, that's our big professional team. We don't have professional football in Oregon. We have professional basketball. Well, we have these professional basketball players who are now becoming winemakers. And
that's a whole episode for us too, Regina. Thanks.
I know.
Perfect idea.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, you watch for those wines.
Oh my gosh, Jim, you have to come on it with us. That's a great idea since you suggested it. We'll set up a Trailblazer winemaking episode and have you join us. How's that sound?
I'll tell you what, if you think about the power of these players, they are, of course, leaders in our community, right? They have more airtime and more than probably most Oregonians do, right? They're revered in our community. And now they're basically saying, hey, I'm going to be an Oregon winemaker. Think about the ambassadorship we're going to get from these remarkable basketball players.
Yeah.
Yes. Fantastic.
Yeah, so you're going to see a change. I think you're going to see a change that Oregon's going to be able to bring to our industry, which is very healthy.
I think it's fantastic. I've been enthralled by these stories and the history behind the vineyards, and the wine is fantastic. I can't wait to get on the phone. And Mary, I will be reaching out to you if I have any trouble getting these wines into the shop.
Well, Regina, can't wait till we can all visit you at your store there, and so much appreciate, it's just such a pleasure to be able to connect with you just as my wine sister, and also just as this, having the relationship with you on the East Coast and the West Coast, which is a national wine conversation, is
Can I come to Oregon first before you come to Atlanta? Because I really want
Have room for you, Regina.
Thank you.
We have some lovely guest suites. We'd love to put you up.
Oh, and I'll love to stay there. Let me just be clear about that.
That sounds fabulous. Mary, Jim, thank you so much for sharing your time, and every episode I just get so inspired by people sharing their authentic stories in the industry that have really made a difference in the contribution of furthering our wine industry, our national wine industry as a whole. And so thank you for
and Jim and Mary, I want to thank you for creating a company and a business with a soul. So it sounds like you have a heartbeat, and cheers to that, because you don't find that everywhere. And I think that is worth celebrating.
I love that. What a beautiful sentiment. I love that. Winery with a soul. That's true. And I felt
one of the things we've done is my wife and I have decided that when we're no longer able to provide the leadership to the company, we put our ownership in trust. And when we pass, the managers of the winery will actually vote those shares. And so what we've done is we've tried to make sure that we've created a means by which the business will continue to serve the public, and to also be a model of behavior that's reflective of the rest of our industry.
Yes.
And so this business will be able to continue on. So we're not selling the business. We're giving it to the employees to manage. Those shares will be in trust. And so the only thing really that it gives them is the authority, because it gives them the power of my shares. But if they sell the company, of course, they don't get the benefit of those shares. So that's how I'm reaching from the grave to make sure that this company can continue to serve the community.
Very nice.
Fantastic. Love that.
Oregon proud. I just love it. I love it.
I do too. I love it.
We're very proud of Oregon.
As you should be.
So Regina, and I'm also proud of just having you as my wine sister, and
same here.
Both of us persisting despite all of the challenges we have all faced, to bring people like Mary and Jim to the forefront in the media with these positive discussions about diversity and shining a light in the dark.
Shining a light. Yes.
Yes. So absolutely. I think signing off to a winery with soul. I love that. That's just made my week. I love that phrase. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you guys so much. And
thank you.
Yes.
It's been my pleasure meeting you both.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mary, for making this happen. And to Carrie, thank you for the remarkable leadership that you've shown and your families has shown from the beginning of our industry. And Regina, I can't wait to see you in person, give you a hug when this coronavirus.
I know. I'm going to give you a big hug, a huge hug. I'm such a hugger.
All right. Well, with that, we're signing off from episode 12. And thank you again. Take care.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers. Okay.